Alrighty. Good evening. Hey everyone. Give a minute for the chat to load. Let me know where you're tuning in from tonight on this beautiful Saturday night. Where are you watching from? I'm in Florida. It is 73 degrees outside and humid. It's beautiful. Beautiful Florida. I got my cup of coffee. And I am ready. Looking forward to yeah, and you know what? I don't know why my if I can figure. That's such a bummer, dude. I used to have the chat on my TV. Now, so I gotta pull my phone up. Oh well. Hey, welcome. We're gonna get into a lot of different things tonight. I see a bunch of our members on. Let me shout out really quick. We have got Huck Wild. We've got Teresa from Ohio. We've got Tracy. We have Mary, Angelina. Thanks for being on here. We got Melinda, another one of our members. Guys, our membership is, I never thought it would like really become anything. I just turned it on to give people the option, and now we have over 110 members. Melanie, hey, welcome. Welcome from Southern Idaho. Guys, we're going to talk about a couple different things. Riley Gaines has become somewhat of a friend. We've done a couple events together. We were on a panel together. We've done some conferences for Turning Point together. Riley Gaines lost the NCAA championship from a tie, and they gave it to a trans male named Leah Thomas. And that is the fake name. That's not their real name. There's so many issues in this, and I'm going to address first. We're going to talk about two things tonight, and so I hope that you are ready for a great episode, because we're going to talk about the trans issue and men in women's sports. And then we're going to talk about Project 2025, because many are saying that President Trump is playing right into Project 2025, even though he's explicitly said he doesn't even know what it is and he has nothing to do with it. So we're going to find out. And I made my caption kind of grabby, like, is Donald Trump involved in Project 2025? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the line items of Project 2025. We're going to look at what Donald Trump has done since being in office. We're going to see if those line up. And most importantly, we're going to see if it's even anything sinister at all, or has it been blown up by the media? What do you think? I want to know tonight what your thoughts are. Do you think that Project 2025 is Trump's thing? And even if it is, do you think that it's something bad? We're going to get into it. We're going to break everything down. But here's the deal. Trump attacks gender ideology head on. Is this part of Make America Great Again? Or is this Project 2025? Or are the two one and the same? Should we fear Project 2025? Like, is Trump a mastermind who's even conning conservatives? Or are we getting exactly what we voted for? Hey, let's dive into all of it tonight. Welcome to the channel. You guys already know I'm Shane Winnings. I aim to give a biblical worldview of a world that's not so biblical. Let's get into it. All right, we're going right into the first category, which is men and women's sports and the trans issue. The second being Project 2025. We're going to cover, what is it? Who created it? Is Trump behind it? Has any of it been executed within the first 3 weeks of office? And should we be concerned? Now, I'm seeing some comments already that are talking about Trump's making me nervous. You know, he's a politician. Hey, John, good to see you. Um, People are saying he's making you nervous. I'd like to know why. Let me know in the comments. Again, you guys already know. I've called myself an equal opportunity offender in that I do not prescribe to one party over the other. I'm not loyal to a person, right? I am loyal to Jesus Christ. And so because of that, I'll call a spade a spade. I don't care. I don't mind saying that. It is what it is. And so if someone's doing something crooked, we're going to get into it. I know the screen just moved over. It was uncentered, so I had to center it. It was like bugging me so hard. I don't care who it is. I will call something out if it's wrong. And so tonight we're going to jump into everything first with the trans issue and Trump's new executive order, which many are touting as right in line with Project 2025, which I said we'll dive into later. But we have this new executive order. We're going to jump right into an article from NPR so I can walk you through what actually happened, what it means for the future of America, women's sports, and the LGBTQ ABCD123 community. Now, before I say that, if you guys have watched my content for any amount of time, you know that I cover a lot of things. I covered Bill Gates for weeks, on multiple different episodes. I talked about the fog. I talked about cloud seeding. I've talked about, I've talked about the DC plane crashes. I've talked about, ministries that have come down. I read the entire book of Philippians and then taught the whole book last night. I didn't just read it, but I taught it. Like, I am very much a holistic type of preacher and teacher. And so if you're looking for a polished, clean pastor who's only going to preach the cross and who's never going to touch anything controversial, well, you're on the wrong channel. But if you're looking for a teacher and a preacher who is going to look at world events and say, this is how Christians should be responding, or this is why it's important, then I think you found the right channel, and I'd encourage you to subscribe. Even Billy Graham, who many people look at and would say he is one of the best preachers of our time in history, that maybe they forget, but many times he would stand up and he would say, I read in the paper today, and he would talk about current events and why the Christians should care and what the biblical perspective was. And so I want you to understand, and I appreciate, even one of our members, Huck Wild, said, this is exactly why I'm here. Like, the gospel looks like something. I say it all the time. And so the reason I'm talking about all this stuff is because it affects us. It affects us. Like, who we elect affects us. And sometimes it's for the good, sometimes it's for the bad. People on either side of the fence are capable of doing good and bad. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the biblical perspective of the trans issue in men and women's sports, but it's not just men and women's sports, and we'll talk about that as well. So let's jump into this article. Hey, look, I'm upside down. I really don't know why it does that. I think it's so goofy. But here we go. Look, fixed. Okay. We are going to go right into this article. This is Trump's executive action. This is an article from NPR, and we're going to walk through this. I want to break down everything that's happening, so please hear me. We're going to break down the executive order. We're going to look directly into the trans issue with some references, some that are pretty horrific. Then as we go through Project 2025, I'm going to go line by line of the 10 kind of key highlights from Project 2025, what they mean, what the criticism is, and then what Trump has actually been doing and why it matters. Like, as a citizen of America, as a Christian, why it matters from a citizen perspective and from a citizen of heaven perspective. And so that's what you can expect tonight. First, we are going into the trans issue. So on day one, newly inaugurated President Trump signed an order aimed at eliminating the idea of gender identity separate from sex in the federal government. This is something that is unknown in many parts of the world. Like, to say that you have a gender identity that's separate from your sex, it is a sign of a mental illness. It is a sign of massive confusion or delusion. But in our country, it's become something celebrated, not by the majority, not even close, but the minority has been speaking very loudly. And unfortunately, even though it's the minority that are speaking the loudest, it's affecting our kids. And if you know me at all and you've listened to any of my stuff in the last 6 months, and really over the last 3 years, because I've been preaching with my son strapped to my chest since he was 6 weeks old. But you guys know that I care about the children. And so it's like, it's one thing if you want to be an adult and you want to go off and do some wacky stuff, fine. As soon as you start trying to force me to go along with it, we have a problem. As soon as you start indoctrinating kids and trying to do things behind parents' backs, now we've got a real problem, and now I am going to be your problem. And so I'm grateful for a president who's not perfect by any means, but he is tackling this head on, and he's using the right language. This is gender ideology. It is not real. It's an ideology. It's a thought. It's someone's idea. It's not real. The order scope is broad. It rescinds a long list of Biden-era policies, changes gender to sex on government forms. How many of you, let me know in the comments, if over the last 4 years you filled something out like a government form and it had more than 2 or 3 options. You know, normally it will say male, female, or unspecified, or prefer not to answer. But how many of you over the last few years, it had a bunch of different options? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I can't believe, I agree with Maynard. Says hard to believe it's gotten this far. Yeah, it has. And I'm going to make a case. Maynard, you bring up a good point. Because it's gotten this far, Trump is going to be looked at as a psychotic, narcissistic dictator for just trying to get us back to normal. I'm going to point that out. The phrase gender ideology became one of Trump's favorite slogans on the campaign trail last year. I will take historic action to defeat the toxic poison of gender ideology and reaffirm that God created 2 genders, male and female. How many of you are grateful for a president that says, I'm going to reaffirm what God said? And if we just want to, lay the foundation right here really quick, let's look at Genesis 1, verse 27. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. All right? That's it. Now, if we skip down, I believe it says it one more time. Where does it say it again? I know it says it one more time. Here we go. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. That's it. It's male and female. That's the truth right there. Sorry, I got caught up reading. It's the biblical truth. So the fact that we have a president that, you know what, whether or not you believe he's a Christian, we didn't vote for a pastor, all right? But even if we elected someone who was not a Christian, let's just say hypothetically, the person said, hey, I'm not a Christian, but I appreciate Christian values, and I believe, I'm not a Christian myself, but I believe the Bible makes a lot of sense, so we're going to return America to what the Bible says God's design was, which is male and female. It makes the most sense to me. We'd be happy about that. We'd be happy. So people say, oh, Trump wants to say this and that. He's not a real Christian. Look, don't even get caught up in that, all right? Look at what he's doing. Forget what he has said. Look at what he does. I will take historic action to defeat the toxic poison of gender ideology and reaffirm that God created 2 genders, male and female. He said this in October. Promises made, promises kept. Just a few months later, that's one of the first things he did. Now, in that order and in several that followed, the administration is trying to put a long-time political phrase into practice. trying to ensure that the government is not promoting or supporting what it calls gender ideology. That means giving the slogan a definition. This stuff is very important tonight because as we begin to break down some of the initiatives in Title IX, you've got to understand how I believe the Biden administration and even things that originated with Obama, because if you remember, and just say a prayer for us, by the way, that we don't get shut down, because I'm going to say some things that could get us flagged on YouTube. I say this a lot, but hey, I talk about controversial stuff. I'm going to try to work my way around it, but I'm just going to say it how it is. Obama on day one, look at what he did. Look at some of the first initiatives he signed. Gay stuff, trans stuff. It shows you where a president's mind and heart is, what they do on day one. And we've never truly recovered since then. And I believe this election was a massive one in taking America back to what we were created to be. Gender ideology replaces the biological category of sex with an ever-shifting concept of self-assessed gender identity. Isn't that true? We went from 2 genders to 4 to 60, then 112. Like, I don't even know how many. Let's just ask right now. Let's ask the internet. How many genders are there outside of the 2 main recognized genders? Question mark. Okay, let's just see what we get. Outside of the 2 recognized gender, it says the number varies based on cultural and social perspectives. All right, I'm just going to say, give me a number. Give me a number. Let's find out. Let's find out how crazy it's gotten. There is no definitive number. Many gender identity lists recognize 10 to 20 commonly known genders, while some sources categorize over 100 different genders. Like, who's had enough? Who would say, "Hey, we've gone too far with this"? Huh? Ridiculous. And it's ever shifting. It's always growing, right? There's people, I remember, who remembers in the TikTok days back in 2020 when people were on there trying to teach like how to use pronouns, and it's just like, man, just give it a rest. Like, I'm getting confused just listening to you. All right, the ever-shifting concept of self-assessed gender identity, permitting the false claim that males can identify as and thus become women and vice versa, and requiring all here's the problem. Look, permitting the false claims that male can identify and thus become women and vice versa. Okay, that's one thing. If you want to believe that, I would say you have a mental disorder. And I'm not being mean. You genuinely need therapy. You need help. You need counseling. I have nothing against people who have a mental problem. All right? I feel for them. I hope that they get help. Here's where it becomes more than you have a mental problem. And requiring all institutions of society to regard this false claim as true. That's where it crosses the line. You want to be delusional? Fine. As soon as you start to force my hand, now we have a problem. And I really got to shout out Texas GRN right now. Thank you so much for that super chat. They say, thank you for tackling this because I've really struggled with this. Is he or isn't he a devout Christian? I feel better. I feel much better now, being that was my hang up. Yeah, remember, guys, we didn't elect a pastor, a priest. We didn't elect a husband, right? We didn't elect a father. We elected a president. We elected someone to try to make the right decision for us as a nation. And I don't care as much about what people say. I care about what they do. And so far, what Trump has said, he is doing. And actually, that is the biggest argument of people who are worried about Project 2025, is because a lot of this stuff is intermingled. And so they're saying, look, he's doing exactly what he said he would do. Well, isn't that what you want from a president? Unless the things that he's doing go against your agenda, which we're going to talk about. So I appreciate you guys saying this. Gender ideology includes the idea that there is a vast spectrum of genders that are disconnected from one sex. Gender ideology is internally inconsistent in that it diminishes sex as an identifiable or useful category, but nevertheless maintains that it's possible for a person to be born in the wrong sexed body. Maybe you guys have seen this. If not, go watch some of Charlie Kirk's stuff when he's on college campuses. People can't say what a woman is. It's just like Matt Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman? And I'm going to show a brief clip from that later, which really drives home the point that I'm trying to make and they're making here. But they can't say what a woman is. They say, oh, it's a person who identifies as a woman. Well, what does that mean? You know, that's like saying, what is a stapler? A stapler is a thing that looks like a stapler. It's like, no, that it has inherent characteristics and descriptive qualities and articulable qualities that make it a stapler that you could define it as, but you're afraid to say what it is because you know that you don't have any legs to stand on. And we know that male and female are separated because of chromosomes, and that causes you to have different genitalia and makeup, whether it's bone density or muscle mass or whatever. The funny thing is, you could pretend to be whatever gender you want, but when you die, they can just look at your bones and they can tell what you were. Like, there's no delusion in science. Like, you look at the data and it is what it is. So what's funny is the people that tell you to follow the science, trust the science, are the ones who are denying science when it comes to ideologies like gender ideology. And it's actually the Christians who are some of the biggest advocates for science, because a true Christian understands that science doesn't disprove God. Christians shouldn't be afraid of science. Science proves God. Science shows the complexity of the human body, the complexity of even the human eye. Science shows the complexity of God's creation. And, when you look at science, you understand that someone had to do all of this. Someone created all of this. So it's incredible. But people will say follow the science until you follow it to the point where it discredits what they're doing, and then they say deny the science. You're being a sexist, misogynist, whatever you want to call it, a transphobe. You just need to take my word for it. Don't listen to science. It's not about chromosomes. Like, well, it is actually. Anyways, the American Civil Liberties Union has a problem with this. Of course they do. They say it's written in a way that's meant to be broad, but also with a specific goal, which is to push trans and non-binary people out of civic life. No, actually, they were never a large part of civic life, but there were two administrations in particular, Obama and Biden, that made them a large part of civic life, propping them up as poster children, putting Dylan Mulvaney in the White House. Like, what on earth are we doing? They were making a mockery of our country. They were lighting up things with pride colors and with trans colors and flags, and just, it was ridiculous. So yeah, Trump is pushing them out. He's pushing them out of these places that they don't belong. Who you have sex with and what gender you think you are, that is your personal business. It definitely isn't something you should publicize, and it definitely isn't something you should make a campaign about. And it definitely isn't something you should try to make everybody else get on board with. Gender ideology, as it's used in executive order, is fairly general, but it's not hard to tease out what is meant by the term, actually looking at the effects. Now, you look at these pictures, we will not be erased, protect trans kids, queer rebellion. No one's trying to erase trans kids. We just don't want teachers to be teaching this stuff in school. We don't want to be forced to learn about it. We don't want trans people to get hired just because they're trans. That's part of what DEI is. DEI is a real thing, and there's a reason it's going away. And we'll get into that as well. Let's see. Nearly 2 million American adults identify as transgender, according to a 2023 survey. So it sounds like a lot. I mean, 2 million is a lot, but it's just under 1% of adults in America. So it is not even a 100th of the population. It's not even 1% of the population. It is a very, very small group, but the internet will make you think that it's much larger. Now, unfortunately, it's 1% of adults, but I believe that it's like 1 in 4 of teenagers identify as some type of, non-binary gender, whatever, sexuality. The thing that is happening to our kids is tragic and horrific. That is why we're speaking out against this. Let's look down at focused on safety. It says the administration's definition has a bigger impact than Trump's initial action focusing on gender ideology. It also factors into orders aimed at removing that ideology from the military and K-12 schools. Trump and his allies have long argued that all of this is about keeping women and girls safe. That's it. I served in the military. I'm telling you, you do not want a trans person in the military. They are showing you that they have a mental disorder, and you are putting them in charge of something within our military. That is a recipe for disaster. And by the way, I've got to echo what Julie Marshall, one of our members, is saying. Please remember to thumbs up the live. So please hit that thumbs up button. Help us reach more people on this Saturday night. A trans person has a mental disorder. If you think you're in a different body, you should not be in charge of anything in the military. You can work at a Starbucks. You can go get a degree in trans stuff if you want, and then teach other trans people about trans stuff. That doesn't mean that's like a self-licking ice cream cone, right? It exists for itself. Like it doesn't do anything. But you should not be involved in keeping our nation's secrets, government affairs, military affairs, nothing. All right, let's see if there's anything else on this that we want to read. A transgender woman working in intelligence, okay, that's an oxymoron to me. A transgender woman working in intelligence. Well, someone who is transgender is lacking intelligence because they deny the basic realities of existence, which is that you are born into one of two genders. That's it. Nevertheless, a transgender woman working in intelligence for a defense contractor also spoke to NPR anonymously for fear of retaliation. She has been told that she's soon losing access to his workplace's women's bathroom, as you should. If you're a man, you shouldn't be in a woman's bathroom. Can I get an amen for that? If I saw a man go into a woman's bathroom, there'd be two men in that bathroom because I'd be in there ripping him out. But Trump's various executive orders have her wondering what else is coming. She pointed to the order about gender ideology in the military, which says that being transgender conflicts with the soldier's commitment to an honorable, truthful, and disciplined lifestyle. Well, it sure does. He said, I'm going to correct it since we know that it's a man, I don't feel comfortable signing a new lease anywhere. It's very hard to focus and feel motivated to work for a government that seems like it could fire me at any moment. Well, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to be gone. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that you shouldn't be trusted in these positions. And that is specifically for trans people. Again, I talked about this before when regarding the military and pilots and whatever else. I don't care if you're gay. That's whatever. That's just who you're attracted to. You don't have a mental problem if you're gay. I have my own opinions as a Christian, but as a human being, as a citizen, as a worker, I don't care. If you're gay, that has nothing to do with your job. Like, good for you, just do your job. It's like saying, hey, I'm straight, I want to work here. I would say, I don't care. Like, do you have the ability to do the job? I don't care. If you put on your resume, hey, I'm straight, I would say, I don't care. Can you do the job? So to me, it's like, okay. We should be caught up now. It's going to lag sometimes. I'm telling you, especially when I talk about stuff like this, that's what happens. So hopefully we'll be all good. Again, I think it's just common sense. We shouldn't discriminate based off of sex. We shouldn't discriminate based off of people's sexuality and their sexual preferences. And that's discrimination both ways. We shouldn't discriminate against them because of who they sleep with or who they're attracted to. And we shouldn't discriminate for them because of who they sleep with and who they're attracted to. We shouldn't apply merit where it's not deserved, and we shouldn't discredit where it's not deserved. Look at a person's content of their character. If they're applying for a job, look at what they do. Can they do the job? But when it comes to transgender, you might as well tell me, I hear voices. You might as well tell me, I think I'm a cat. Like, you are not going to get the job because you have displayed that you are mentally unwell. And I don't fault you for that. I don't look down on you because of that. But you will not get the job if I'm the person who's doing the employing. All right. Now, to me, this thing that Trump signed seems like a massive win for America, for common sense, for women. But I want to show you this comment. I saw this on Facebook today. I've taken out the woman's picture, and I've taken out her name. This is from a woman. This is from a progressive woman. And I've seen a lot of comments like this. And so I want to address this because this is incredibly hypocritical. And I'm going to tell you why. So this is from a progressive woman, again, which are some of the ones who scream about women's rights louder than anybody else. She said, seriously, like 4 athletes are impacted by this issue. She means only a couple of athletes are impacted by the transgender issue, saying that it's not a big deal. Meanwhile, Title IX, which I will explain here shortly, that actually has an impact on women athletes is on the chopping block. No, it isn't. She says, we are not this ignorant. Okay, let me tell you why this is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever read coming out of the mouth of a progressive woman. Progressive women are the ones that shout the future is female louder than anybody else, right? They're all about feminism. They're all about, pushing down masculinity, toxic masculinity, non-toxic. They don't want any of it. I'm independent. I don't need no man, right? I can do my career. I can do it all by myself. We need to advocate for women's rights. You've got to believe women, stick up for women. The future is women. Okay, so look at this quote, because the same person who says that says this. Do you know why this is ironic, why it's paradoxical, why it's an oxymoron? Because when you say, oh, only 4 athletes are affected by this, only 4 women are affected by this, transgender issue. 1, let's talk about men and women's sports. They have a clear advantage. Again, I was on a panel with Riley Gaines back in December, and she was sharing, and you've probably heard her story. If you haven't, you should go listen. But she was on the panel with me, and she said, this guy, I forgot. You know what? Let me find out, because I don't want to say his fake name. What is Leah Thomas's real name? William Thomas. Okay. William Thomas. So, William Thomas, who ended up being awarded the national championship, was like a nobody in men's swimming. Okay? Nobody. Wouldn't have won a single thing. Wouldn't have ever been on a podium. Jumps over to the women's category, wins the women's championship. Now, Riley has spent her entire life training, working hard, in high school, working through conference, district, regional, state, in college, working through all the tournaments, working through the championships, making it to the NCAA finals. Finds out she's racing against a biological male. I believe the race tied. They didn't know it was within like 100th of a second or some crazy, uh, close margin that they ended up saying, well, listen, it's technically a tie. We can't tell the difference, but we're going to, it's going to be a split championship, but we're going to have William hold the trophy and get the trophy because of optics, right? They want us to have the trans person. It's a whole agenda. You tell me how that's empowering women. You've got a 21-year-old girl who spent her life working as hard as she possibly can. And then, and this is how people get to the Olympics, right? They're crushing it in high school. They're crushing it in college. Then they go to Olympic trials. And, you know, Riley could have been an Olympian. I believe the Lord had different plans for her. But this is what happens. You tell me how that's empowering women's rights. And what kind of message is that sending all of the women below Riley? All of the young girls in junior high and high school who see, well, what's the point? Because now men are just going to start coming in and beating us, so why should I even try anyways? So there's that. There's that aspect of it, which I think is horrific because that's soul crushing, right? When you give your everything to something and you lose and it's unfair, like it's truly unfair. It's truly an injustice. But here's the second piece, and this is what angers me, and this is what Riley shared. She said it wasn't just that I had to swim against this biological male, which you look at this picture. Where is it? Look how much bigger he is. Broader shoulders, taller, masculine chin. It wasn't just that. She said, I had to share a locker room with this guy. It's not just about the swimming. Men are preying on women in locker rooms. So let me tell you why this person's comment right here, it doesn't make any sense. You're saying, oh, we're not that ignorant, you know, Title IX, not many girls are. So what you're saying is not one, not two, not three, but 4 girls being exposed to a naked biological male with male parts in a locker room. You don't care about that, right? You don't care about that. Why? Because you hate Trump. This person hates Donald Trump. So anything he does, they hate it. Even to the point that they will contradict themselves because it's like the future's female, unless we're talking about a man in women's sports, in which case, it's not even a big deal. Do you see how these worldly ideologies shoot themselves in the foot? Watch. This is how hilarious these worldly ideologies are, and they shoot themselves in the foot. Over here, you've got this raging liberal feminist ideology, which is the future's feminine, okay? Then over here, you've got the trans issue. And so, you know, you've got to be an advocate. You see these people on the left. And listen, I'll just say this. There's people on the far, far extreme right that are just as sickening to me as the people on the left. I've heard it all, okay? That's why picking an extreme political side is a problem. You got to be extreme about one thing, and it's this right here. This is what I'm extreme about, okay? I'm extreme about the Word of God. I'm very narrow-minded when it comes to my faith. I'm not an open book. I'm not a very spiritually open person. I'm a pretty closed-off person spiritually. So if you're going to be extreme about anything, be extreme for the Lord. But check this out. So you've got this feminist thing, right? But then you have this trans thing, because what you notice from a lot of progressives, I won't say liberals, I won't say Democrats, I'm just going to say progressives. These people they're so forward thinking, right? With these progressives, they've got to champion everything. That's why, and you tell me if I'm lying, you look at their bio in Instagram, especially 2020 through 2024, it was like BLM, pride flag, trans flag, Ukrainian flag, Palestinian flag, like, you know, pronouns, freaking everything, right? Am I lying? Like their bio, it's like, what else can I sell out for? What else am I championing? Okay, well, here's the hilarious thing. God does not contradict himself. God is not the author of confusion. That's the enemy. And so what happens is you've got someone championing feminism, and then you've got someone also championing trans issues. Well, wait a second. If I'm championing trans issues, well, then I'm saying that a man can become a woman. So I'm discrediting the power of a woman because, well, anyone can just become a woman. A man can just call himself a woman. And if I'm advocating for trans rights at the cost of actual biological women's rights, well, now I've pit myself against myself because you say, well, we've got to stick up for the trans. Why would we cancel them? It's only affecting 4 females. What you're saying is you're okay with predatory behavior. So I don't want to hear, and this is to any progressive who's listening to me, I don't want to hear from one single person that supports the trans movement. I never want to hear you cry out about abuse towards women. I never want to hear you put #MeToo. I don't care what you have to say about your story, your abuse story, or we should be advocating for women. No, shut your mouth. And here's why. You don't actually care about women. Because I'm going to show you what's actually happening. Because this trans issue is not just men and women's sports. It's men and women's locker rooms. Let's look at some articles here that should make you feel absolutely sick to your stomach. Let me see if I can minimize this a little bit. Okay, it says young girl is RAPED in school bathroom by transgender peer. Oh, they're not going to let me read this. Okay, wait, who did it? I can look it up. This was in New Mexico. Pseudonym Ray. Okay, let's look this up really quick. Okay, here we go. I'm going to find this. This is absolutely disgusting. Okay, here we go. Let's see if this works. This article says, mother says teen boy charged with assault in girl's bathroom in Virginia is actually straight. Dude, every single page. Ugh. All right. In a Little Notice interview, the mother of a 15-year-old boy charged with sexually assaulting a girl last May in the girl's bathroom in Virginia that the 2 students attended said her son identifies as a heterosexual. The May 28, 2021 assault first surfaced in the news. At the same time, law enforcement disclosed the boy allegedly sexually assaulted a girl on October 6th at another high school to which he was transferred. The disclosure of 2 assaults triggered a furious backlash by some parents against the school policy allowing transgender and gender fluid students to use the bathroom that conform to their gender identity. So what are we seeing? We're seeing that when you put these wicked policies in place, you are enabling these kids to be sexually assaulted. Now, where did this happen? I want to find this somewhere. In New Mexico. This was in New Mexico. All right, so let's see if we can find this. Young girl assaulted, New Mexico, trans. Here we go. Let's see if this one works. New Mexico middle school student alleges she was RAPED inside New Mexico school that embraces trans bathroom policies. Okay, let's read this one. Thanks for bearing with me as I get this set up. Broke the story about a young girl who was allegedly RAPED by a biological male in the bathroom at Ask Academy in New Mexico, a school which, according to allegations, fully embraces transgender bathroom policies. Let's see. Telling stories the media fails to cover, including female athletes like, oh, right there, Riley Gaines. We were just talking about. Let's see if they have any of what happened. The young girl's mental health suffered during the months following the alleged assault, but she internalized her deep grief, anxiety, and depression and told the mother she was just being bullied, feeling like the school wasn't doing enough to protect her daughter. Guys, this is the problem in America right now, and this is why we need what Trump is doing so badly, is because we have parents who are saying, man, my kids are not safe at school. Why do you think homeschool numbers are up higher this year than ever before and in 2024? It's because of junk like this is going on. Months later, the mother discovered her daughter's journals where the phrase, I was RAPED, was written countless times. Now, let me just say something that might feel, listen, I'll leave it up to you, obviously, if you're a parent. But I don't think that kids should have a total right to privacy. I don't think that. I think, and I don't think you betray your child's trust, but I think you make it clear to your children, hey, at some point, I am the parent, and if I feel like I have an inclination or I have a gut feeling or I feel like the Lord is nudging me, I'm going to look into some stuff. I'm going to ask you or I'm going to whatever. And you need to know, as long as you're in this house, like, your stuff is subject to be looked through. And so I want my kids to know that they, I remember when I was like 5 or 6 or 7, I had a journal, because I think if you remember the show Doug had a journal, right? And so I was like, oh, that'd be cool to have a journal. And, just like any kid, you're like, I don't want my parents reading it. But the thing is, I have another friend who they had an inclination, they had an impression, they felt like it was from the Lord. And the kid was saying, you can't violate my privacy. You can't violate my privacy. Well, they go into his room and they found like hard drugs in his bedroom, right? If you didn't go in there and you respected your kid's privacy, you never would have found it, and you're enabling them in that type of lifestyle. So I just say, like, I applaud this mother for reading her daughter's journals. I think you're the parent, like, you know what's best. And I don't see that as a violation of privacy. It's very important that this stuff comes out. So I just applaud that mother for even having the courage to do that, because some parents, maybe they wouldn't know what to do. And we might have differing opinions, and that's fine. But you know what? You'll never find out stuff like this if you don't. The two now, talking about the mother and the daughter, feel like sitting ducks after they've spent over 1.5 years at the mercy of the school and the local police department, who have dragged their feet in any effort to identify the alleged perpetrator and hold him accountable. This is absolutely disgusting type of behavior. Oh, we've got another one. You can't see the whole title, so I'll read it. Parents of female students outraged after boy parades around girls' locker room naked, exposing himself at the Westosha Central High School. This happened again. These young girls, many of them freshmen, would come into the locker room, and this guy would be putting lotion on his privates saying, oh, I'm chafing. But he had an erection. Now, this is the gym teacher. I'm going to read something. You can't see all of it, but I'm going to read this. This is a picture of the gym teacher. Here's what the kid said. The boy changes in full nude, often exposing his penis and testicles. Many girls, some of which are freshmen, approach the gym teacher, this woman, her name's Miranda Hopkins. Hopkins told the girls that the boy identifies as a girl, so they have to let him in. There is a family locker room in the school that the girls started using, but Hopkins told the girls that they can't use it. And she told them to stop stirring up drama. Then the girls quit changing in the locker room and went to gym class without the appropriate gym clothes on. The school punished them by marking their grades down and handing out unexcused absences. Then, in one instance, a girl was assaulted because she told the boy to put his privates away because he had them out. He pushed the girl and got suspended. Then he broke another girl's laptop. All of this stuff is happening, but these girls are being told, hey, stop being dramatic, right? We don't want to offend the trans person. This is an epidemic. Why am I telling you this? Because this is exactly what we're up against. Here's another article. Trans student exposed girls to male genitalia in the school locker room. I mean, guys, there's no shortage of these things. And do you know when this was written? Let me look. When was this one pinned? April 21st, 2023. All of this stuff is recent. Here's another one. North Carolina man arrested after stripping in Planet Fitness women's locker room in front of a minor. He went to the women's locker room, stripped down, said that he was trans. He stripped in front of a 17-year-old girl, and then he asked her to rub lotion on him and asked if they could shower together. He said he identifies as a woman, and Planet Fitness backed him up. A teen girl was accused of hate speech after protesting transgenders in the YMCA locker room. I think it's pretty reasonable that these women don't want to be sexually assaulted. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Is this reasonable, or are these women just being dramatic? So when you tell me, oh, we shouldn't be canceling trans stuff, this isn't very loving. No, you're not loving women, because actual women are the victims here. They're being traumatized. They're being exposed by they're having genitalia exposed to them against they're just trying to change in a locker room. Like, it's bad enough. Riley was saying it's bad enough that I got to swim against this guy, but then I got to go in the locker room afterwards and see him naked. We've got to do something. Now, one of the comments, again, if we look at this woman's comment really quickly, she said, well, we should be upset about Title IX that's going to impact people. Well, what is Title IX? Title IX is a federal civil rights law in the U.S. It prohibits sex-based discrimination in any education program or activity that receives federal funding. So this is important that Trump is getting into Title IX, because he's basically saying, if you don't play ball, we're going to take your funding away. If you don't go along with what we're doing, we're not going to give you any money. So this, along with DEI and other rights that were enacted, are paving the way for woke doctrine to be injected into our schools, from elementary all the way to our once prestigious universities. By enacting these laws, Trump can make sure that our country is not eroded from within. Because any school that doesn't comply, he cuts off their funding and they can face other consequences. You see, people can be bought. Like, this is what we're being shown. People can be bought. I would disagree vehemently, but I would at least respect a school if they said, I don't care what Trump says, we're still going to let men and women's sports and women's locker rooms. But they won't do it. Why? Because they'll lose their money. At the end of the day, people who don't actually believe and don't actually have convictions, they will sell out for money. It's just like the tariffs. Man, they're working. The Colombian president didn't want to let the plane of Colombian immigrants land back in the country after Trump deported them. So Trump said, fine, 25% tariff, and it goes up by 25% every single week. That guy was calling within hours, saying, okay, I'm sorry, please lift the tariffs, we'll let them land. You see, he doesn't actually believe. These people are just flexing, but they don't actually believe. When the weight of reality hits them, they cave immediately. This is why I appreciate the current administration, because they are putting America first. And this comes down to a difference in ideology. Do you believe there are only two genders? If you do, you're not going to fall for any of the nonsense. If you fall into the category of, no, I think there's more than two, you open yourself up to a world void of reality. Then you begin to prop up mentally and emotionally disturbed people as heroes. You're so brave, poster children for brands like Bud Light and beyond. Meanwhile, in the tucked away villages and tribes of the world, like the Maasai tribe in Africa, you'll get laughed at. I want you to see this, and I had to distort this clip so that we didn't get a copyright flag, so I hope that it works. And you might need to turn the volume up because the audio is kind of low, not volume-wise, but frequency. But just listen. If you haven't seen this, this is from Matt Walsh's What is a Woman? Listen to just two of the questions that they're presented with and how they respond. Again, this is a tribe out in Africa, and this is how they're responding to some basic questions.
No, it will look like if you want to become a lady but you're a man, you have something wrong in your mind, something wrong in your family, something wrong in you. We have never seen things like those. For a man, he has a penis. For a woman, he has a vagina. So we know this is a lady, this is a man. What if it's a woman with it? What if it's a woman with a penis? What? Zara. Kidemane ngere ngiro. Entabo. People are laughing, but don't question.
He says, if this happens to you, you've got something wrong in your brain, or you have something wrong in your family. And so he's like, okay, well, what if it's a man who wants to become a woman? And he's like, what are you talking about? A man has a penis, a woman has a vagina. And he's like, well, what if he thinks, and then they just start laughing. Like they were like, we have never heard of anything like this. And it reminds me of Romans 1. Romans 1, where it says, I just want to read this really quick. Before we begin to hop into Project 2025, I want to finish off this first part of men and women's sports, men and women's locker room, the trans issue. This is straight out of Romans 1. Here's what it says, starting in verse 18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. Since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. This verse to me, Romans 1:20, says there are no such thing as atheists or agnostics. This says that everyone knows that someone's responsible for all of this, that God has made, he's not hidden himself. He's not a mystery. It says that being clearly seen, the invisible attributes are clearly seen, so that people are without excuse. You have no excuse. Everybody knows that someone created everything, right? It comes down to a heart issue, a mind issue. It's a pride issue. But listen to what it goes on to say. Because although they knew God, hey, I know God's there, they did not glorify him as God, nor were thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing to be wise, these people are like, oh, I'm a trans DEI master, professor. They think they're wise. Professing to be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man. Therefore God gave them up to uncleanness in the lusts of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves. who exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshiped and served the creature rather than the Creator who is blessed forever. For this reason, God gave them up to vile passions, for even their women exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. Likewise, also the men, leaving the natural use of a woman, burned in their lust for one another, men with men, it's talking about homosexuality, committing what is shameful and receiving in themselves the penalty of their error which was due. Now, I want you to hear this last part here. Romans 1:28. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind. They're not based. They're debased. To do the things which are not fitting, being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. They are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters. Listen to this next one. Inventing new ways to sin, disobedient to parents, undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, and unmerciful. Aren't they? They cry for mercy, they don't show any mercy. They cry for forgiveness, they don't show forgiveness. They never forget, they hold a grudge. They cry about loving, but they're unloving. They claim that you've got to be trustworthy, they're not trustworthy. They claim they've got wisdom, they're not discerning at all. Finally, it says, who knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things are deserving of death, not only do them, but also approve of those who do the same. This is the world we're living in. This is Romans 1. We're living in a time where evil is being celebrated, and I'm grateful for a president and an administration that is pulling us back to common sense. Can I get an amen for that? Amen, amen, amen. All right, let's finish this up with a little bit of Project 25. Let's talk about Project 25. Who appreciated that first half? Let me know. Make sure you thumbs up the video if you liked it, if you appreciated it. I hope I gave you somewhat of an overview of the trans issue, why this executive order from Trump was so important. We're not just keeping men out of women's sports, which is completely eroding the integrity of women's sports, but we are also keeping men out of women's locker rooms, and that's super important. Now, Project 2025. It's a comprehensive blueprint developed not by Trump, but by the Heritage Foundation, which is basically like a conservative think tank. It was supposed to be a roadmap for the next Republican administration led by Trump and reshape the federal government. Now, Trump said, I don't know what this is. I've never read it. I don't want to read it. I don't care what it is. I've got my own policies. Let's look into the Heritage Foundation, because if we need to understand who they are. Again, Trump said, I've never looked at this. I don't care what it is. From the beginning, he says, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. Now, here's the thing. It could have some good stuff in it. Trump says, I don't care. It's not my policy. It's not my strategy. It's not my campaign. So I'm not interested in partnering with someone else's vision for America. I have my own. I've got a team. This is what we're doing. So that's why there could be some similarities, because the people who want to do this have a lot of the same views that we do. So the Heritage Foundation, again, it's a conservative think tank. It was founded in 1973, and they have helped shape a lot of Republican policies. They promote policies based on limited government. Who here wants big government? You want government in everything you do? You want government regulating everything? Or do you want little government, limited government? They promote free markets, traditional family values. How about a strong military? and American sovereignty, meaning we're not going to be ruled by globalist policies. They are very, very conservative. That's enough on the Heritage Foundation. Let's get into the project itself that Trump was accused of being behind. I'm going to pull up an article that I was starting to look at. See if I can get this. Here we go. Donald Trump spent much of the campaign season running away from Project 2025. They say he lied to the public about his support for the deeply unpopular agenda. Now, Project 2025 is no longer a policy document from which Republicans can run away. It has served as Trump's playbook for his first weeks in the Oval Office. An illegal attempt to remove independent watchdogs from the federal government in the dead of night. The unlawful freezing of all foreign aid and domestic federal assistance. Well, you know what? Let's talk about that for a minute. So one of the key objectives of Project 2025 was expanding presidential power. He would increase executive control over different federal agencies. He was also going to reclassify civil service jobs so that he could basically lay off anyone he wanted to. Anyone who didn't cooperate with conservative policies, they were reclassified, and now he would be able to have control over them. So that is how he could fire thousands and thousands of people in these different organizations because of this reclassification of presidential power. Now, I think this is a great thing. Critics are saying, well, what about checks and balances? Okay, yeah, we've got the Senate, we've got the House for that. They're also saying, he's politicizing the civil service. These are supposed to be nonpartisan roles. We're looking at the EPA, the FBI, the CDC, the CIA. Let me ask you a question. Because people are saying if Trump does this, it's going to compromise the integrity and the neutrality of federal agencies. Okay, let me ask a genuine question. We've got 750 people live right now. Do you trust any of the following organizations? Do you think that they're neutral? And do you think that they're filled with integrity? Do you trust any of the following? The Environmental Protection Agency, the FBI, the CDC, do you trust them? The CIA, any other three-letter agency, do you currently trust them? Do you think that they're neutral? They're not party specific. Do you think that they're filled with integrity? Look, there's people laughing in the comments section. So who do you think is worried about Trump right now? Because he's going to do exactly what he said he's going to do. He's saying, you know what? We're going to assign these people. We're going to reinstate what's called Schedule F. Schedule F allows for people to be fired at will. And that's what we need. If you're wrong, you're gone. If you don't fall in line, you're gone. Our country is heading in a direction of common sense, and we need everyone on board. Like, let me ask you this. The majority of Americans, and if you look at the map, it was a red wave. Like, the country is red. They put a mandate on Trump in the administration. They said, we want you to take America back to the glory days, back to the golden age, right? We want America to be a country of common sense. What good would it be if Trump got put in the White House with his administration, but the people in the EPA, the FBI, the CDC, the CIA all stayed the same? Every time he passed anything, it would hit a roadblock. They would oppose everything he did at every step of the way. Like, what good is it to elect a leader if he's got people who are constantly undermining him? I elected a leader because I want his policies. So I want the president to be able to override the leader of the FBI. I want the president to be able to fire the EPA heads. By the way, the EPA, go watch the movie Dark Waters and look at what happened with the DuPont scandal. The EPA covered up toxins and PFOAs and PFAs that were being dumped into the water supply. DuPont employees that were getting cancer, that were having miscarriages, that were having disfigurations of their children. Employees were dying. They were dumping toxins into the water and into the land, and it was killing people's crops. It was giving people tumors and cancers. They created Teflon, which they found had PFOAs and PFAs in it, and the EPA tried to cover it up. Do you really trust the EPA? No. So when they talk about draining the swamp, the EPA is included because it's all about money for them. The FBI, dude, I don't even need to get started. I can't wait for the Kennedy files to come out. The CDC, really? The CDC, did you see what Fauci was doing? I understand why he got preemptively pardoned, and it wasn't just because of the C-19 issue from 2020 and because of the jab. Did you know that tens of millions of dollars was being spent by Fauci to do horrific experimentation on animals, including transgender experiments on animals? Like, what kind of sick freaking pervert does transgender experiment? Animals don't think they're a different gender. People in tribes in Africa don't even think they're different genders. They think you have a mental issue if you do. But your tax dollars and mine went towards that stuff. Go look it up. This stuff is coming out. And guess what? He can't be tried because Biden pardoned him. The reason I'm bringing all this up is because this is the stuff that Trump's being accused of. So far, we're batting 1,000 because I'm grateful for what he's doing. Listen, I want Trump to be checked. I want him to be balanced. Just like a board. I talk about it all the time. I've got a healthy board at Promise Keepers that's going to keep me in line. I want Trump to be kept in line. But my board keeps me in line, but they are a springboard for me, not a wall. They're not an obstacle, right? They want to support my vision for the organization. They want us to do well. These people that Trump is firing en masse don't want him to do well. They want him to fail. And so when I see someone on my staff who is against me, I'll fire them. You're toxic. I don't want you in the organization. Go ruin another organization, but my organization is going to be run this way. We don't want a president to get blocked trying to do what the American people elected him to do. Again, this is also related to where our money is going. Do you want your tax dollars to fund foreign abortions? How about gender studies? Do you guys want your tax dollars to fund that? You guys cool with that? How about terrorism? Do you want your tax dollars funding terrorism? Let's look at a couple of ways that your tax dollars are being spent under the Biden administration. Here we go. This is what USAID did. It's USAID. This is what's happening right now with USAID. I'll call it USAID. By the way, these are real numbers, guys. I really can't believe this. Trump put a halt on this, and he is coming under so much fire right now because he laid off almost 10,000 people. There were 10,000 people working for this organization, and he brought it down to 200. Right now, I believe a judge has put a pause while they look into this, but this is part of Elon Musk's doing with Doge, where they're looking at what can we trim? What kind of crap is our money being spent on? Check this out. This is real, by the way. These are real line items. Thanks to the Biden administration, here's where your money was going. Don't worry about the hurricane victims. Don't worry about Maui and those victims, people still putting their life back together. Don't worry about Palisades and the people in Los Angeles who lost everything. Don't worry about them. Look at where this money's going. We'll give you $700 to put your life back together. Your house just burned down and everything inside, but we'll give you $700. We don't have money for you. Why? Because $200 billion went to the Ukraine. And let's look at this list. $15 million for condoms to the Taliban. Now, do you know why condoms went to the Taliban? They would make bombs with them. Go look it up on YouTube. They blow up the condoms like balloons and they put with helium and they put bombs on them. Almost $500,000 to promote the expansion of atheism in Nepal. All this stuff is legit. You can look it up. This has been sourced. $1 million to boost French-speaking LGBT groups in West and Central Africa. Why? 14 million in cash vouchers for migrants at the southern border. 20 grand for a drag show in Ecuador. You show me where your money is, you'll show me where your heart is. This is what the administration was spending money on. $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia. 32 grand for an LGBTQ-centered comic book in Peru. 55 grand for a climate change presentation warning about the impact of climate change in Argentina, led by LGBTQ journalists and females. This just sounds like if I was trying to write the stupidest way to spend American money, I wouldn't have even got to this point. Number 9, $3.3 million for, quote, being LGBTQ in the Caribbean. 7 grand for a BIPOC speaker series that's Black, Indigenous, people of color. $80,000 for an LGBTQ community center in Bratislava, Slovakia. Yeah, you need a special place to hang out when you're gay. Here's another one. $3.2 million to help Tunisian migrants readjust to life after deportation. $16,000 to foster a united and equal queer feminist discourse in Albanian society. Guys, I don't know how to say this any more clearly. These are your actual tax dollars. If you pay taxes, this is where your money went. Not your country, not your kids' school, not to make your roads better. Your tax dollars went to this crap right here. Let's keep going. This is real life. This isn't a joke. Like, this is where our actual money went. $10,000 to pressure Lithuanian corporations to promote DEI values. My God, dude. $1.5 million to promote job opportunities for gays in Serbia. $70,000 to create a U.S.-Irish musical to promote DEI in Ireland. It makes me think of those absolutely insane jab commercials that they would do. You remember those? In 2020 and 2021? Those ridiculous commercials. You had Jimmy Fallon, wasn't he doing one of them? Stephen Colbert. They're doing these musicals on their late night show, promoting the V. Not one of us regrets not getting it. $40,000 to host seminars at the Edinburgh International Book Festival on gender identity and racial inequality. Equality. $2.5 million to build electric vehicle charging stations in Vietnam's largest cities. And finally, $425,000 to help Indonesian coffee companies become more climate and gender friendly. I wish this was a joke. It's not. It is not a joke. This is legitimate. Politico could not make payroll because the money was stopped. That's right. U.S. aid paid for 8,000 subscriptions, $32 million for Politico. Guys, this was fraud. This money was being fed right back into the pockets of the Democrats. Taxation without representation is theft. You tell me, based off that list of 20 things, if you are being represented. I don't think so. Now, Another thing in Project 2025 they're blaming Trump for is restructuring the federal government. Well, that falls in line with number one. I'm happy about that. Restructure it. Get rid of it. Get rid of the Department of Education. It's a joke. Immigration overhaul. Expand deportations. Yes. By the way, so far of any president, Lorena, thanks so much for that gift. It says, cleaning up the swamp, let's pray for our president, hedge of protection, and submission to God's will. Yes, amen. The latter more important than anything else. I pray that he would submit to God's will. By the way, if you just want to look it up by the numbers, Obama deported more people than any other president. At the peak of Obama's deportation, he deported 425,000 people in a single month. Trump, during his first term, the most he ever deported in a month was 200,000. Obama deported over 3 million people during his time. Trump only did about half that. So when people want to get up in arms about Trump deporting people, he has a ways to go before he catches up with Obama. Obama was very hard on deportation. So it's really, really interesting how people want to throw stones at Trump when Obama was the one kicking millions and millions out. Like millions, dude. He deported almost 500,000 people in a month. Everybody loved him. Why? Because he was black, because he talked well, and I'm not going to say anything else. I don't want to get in trouble. Not just with YouTube, with the Lord. I shouldn't say every thought that comes in my mind. Let's just say there's a reason that trans stuff was one of the first things Obama did, and I'll leave it at that. Also, Trump rolling back social and civil rights policies. Good. Restricting LGBTQ protections, particularly in education and healthcare, promoting traditional family values. Again, people find an issue with this. Tightening abortion restrictions. This might be a hot take, but I don't think trans people should receive special rights. I think if you're a different gender or an animal or you're attracted to a toaster, hey, that's great. That's all you. I'm not going to bother with it. But when you start pushing on those rights to infiltrate society and our schools, when you start normalizing it or even enforcing it on people or our kids, that's when I'm going to step in. And I hope there's more dads and mama bears in the chat that say, yeah, I'm stepping in. You know what? I might have been silent. I might have been trying to get my bearings for the last 4 years, but I know where I stand now. And that crap is not coming against my kids. I'll tell you what, I'll be at the school. I'll be in the school board meeting. I'll be wherever I need to be. But you're not going to do that stuff to my kids. And we're actually going to homeschool our kids, but we're going to put them in sports. And someone starts trying to say some wild stuff to my kid, some adult starts trying to talk to my kid about sexuality, dude, you're going to get put in a chokehold. You're a pervert. You're a pedophile. And I'll hold you in a chokehold until the police show up. And I'll say, this person was making sexual advances towards my kid, because there's no other reason for an adult to be having a sexualized conversation with a child unless you have ill intentions. You're a pedophile. Let me tell you why this is the biggest one to me. And I want to address this comment. Someone just said we should respect all rights, all human rights equally. Yes, unless your rights violate my rights. Okay? Because when the whole gay thing happened, I want to go back to Colorado. First, it was, hey, we just, talking about homosexuals. Hey, we just want to have rights. We just want to be able to get married. Whatever. Sure. That was a slippery slope. Because first it was, we just want to have the same rights as everybody else. We want to get married. Even though marriage is defined as between a man and a woman. If we want to go back to biblical values, and Trump says God's idea for gender, well, right after Genesis 1 is Genesis 2, which talks about God's idea for marriage. So he created male and female. We should agree on that. Well, then he created marriage, which was between that male and between that female and nobody else. So there is no marriage outside of a male and a female. It's an imitation. It's not godly, it's not real, it's not recognized by God, it's not an actual covenant. Okay? But it started as we just want the same rights as anyone else. Then it became you got to bake the cake. You remember the baker? I think it was in Colorado. You got to bake a cake for our gay wedding. And the Christian baker said, I'm sorry, but I don't hate you. I don't have anything against you. I won't do that. I won't bake a cake for a gay wedding. I'm a Christian. I don't support gay weddings, so I'm not going to bake the cake. Then they wanted to sue the baker, bankrupt the baker, take their business down. So it goes from we just want the same rights to bake the cake or we'll take everything you have. Then we get into where we are at in the last few years, which is like our kids can't even learn their ABCs anymore because they have to learn your sick pedophile teacher's pronouns and what they like, what kind of sex they like to have. It is a slippery slope. So we can respect everyone's rights, your human rights, but your sexuality should stay at home in your bedroom. Don't bring it into the public eye. And as I was about to say, this is the biggest one to me. This is the most important one to me because when we erode the basics of a society, and in fact, the basics of our human design, God created male and female, and he created them to be together in marriage. When we erode the basics of society, which is the belief in two genders, the belief in male and female together in marriage, the belief in a mom and a dad in a home raising children, when we erode those basics, we no longer have a society. To me, that is the biggest issue we have, is the LGBTQ issue in America. I believe it is an erosion of our society. If you want to be LGBTQ, you go do that over here. I don't talk to you about my sexuality. That's between me and my wife. When I was single, that's between me and myself. And if I'm a single Christian man, I shouldn't have a sexuality. I don't want to know about yours. I don't care about yours unless you call yourself a Christian, in which case you fall under this word. Then we can talk about it. But we should not be getting into this place where we're now parading and being proud not just of sexuality, but of sexuality that spits in the face of Almighty God. A nation that spits in the face of God is not going to be blessed. A couple other things they blame Trump for: economic and tax reforms, environmental deregulation, drill baby drill. Hey, I'm good with it. I'm good with it. You talk to anyone, you go watch the video of the guy who invented the Weather Channel and find out what he has to say about climate change. It's fake. Everything they do about climate change is for a money grab. It's for control. It's to get all of you on an electric power grid so that they can control you and so that they can get more money, right? Here's how you can know it's fake. The people screaming the loudest about climate control are flying tens of thousands of miles a year on jet engines. Shut up with climate control. Climate change, it's fake. Education reform. We need education reform, don't we? We absolutely need education reform. Our schools are not safe. Our schools are not safe for kids. A lot of the people doing the school shootings, and in fact, if you remember the article I just read where Miranda Hopkins was that teacher in the orange shirt, that picture that I showed you who told the girls to stop causing drama because there was a boy naked in their locker room. They had told the administration, this guy says he's going to shoot up the school, and it says that they were dismissed. Look at the last 10 school shootings. How many of them were transgender? These people are not okay in the head. Not only are our kids not physically safe in a lot of schools, our kids are not safe from being polluted with radical ideology, which is why I'm so grateful for Trump completely upending that. Let me say this tonight. while we've got almost 1,000 people live streaming, and I pray this video gets a lot of views so that someone can hear this, I've got a wonderful idea for how to keep our schools safe. Do you know how many veterans there are out there who are looking for a job that has purpose, who maybe aren't able to be cops, like full-time cops, or aren't able to, work in certain jobs because of their disability or because of whatever? It's hard out there. Do you know how many veterans we have that would love to take a full-time position in defending elementary, junior, and high schools across the country? If you took 4 veterans and strapped them up with rifles and plate carriers and pistol belts and gave them ammunition, and you said, we're going to pay you guys full time, you keep this school safe and you don't allow a shooting to happen at this school. And if someone does try to shoot up this school, you guys take them out. You guys are well trained. You've been trusted. You've had security clearances. You've deployed in wars. Now you're going to have a high calling. Man, your time in the military might be done, but we are going to honor you, and we're going to let you do that thing that fulfills you, which is that guardian protecting heart that you have. Put 4 veterans outside of every school in America. I'm telling you, you get some kids showing up to do a school shooting, and all of a sudden that day there's 4 vets out front roaming the school with assault rifles. That's going to be a pretty safe school. Forget paying to arm all the teachers and training them. I mean, hey, that could be a good idea too. Just hire some veterans. They've already got the training. They've already got the qualifications. Just give them a good rifle, give them a good pay, and let them do the work. Man, we would be fine. You have to create a fear. You have to create a fear in the heart of criminals. Man, if I do this here, I'm going to get killed. I might not even be successful. I got to go find somewhere else to do it. You know what? They go to the next school. There's 4 vets at that school. Crap. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. It works. You look at cities that are heavily policed or cities that take crime very seriously. The city I worked in, dude, we were hard on crime. Man, I would jack people up for riding down the street at 3 a.m. with no bicycle helmet. Or you had a bike helmet on, but it wasn't clipped around your chin. Why? Because I worked on a main strip that had some of the sleaziest motels, pay by the hour motels. You don't have to pay with money. You could pay in other ways. You could pay with drugs. You could pay with favors. What kind of people do you think are riding bicycles in that area with gloves on and backpacks on? What kind of adult is riding a bicycle in that kind of area at 3 a.m.? And I jacked a lot of people up, stopped them. I found a guy from America's Most Wanted because I stopped him without a bike helmet. Like, I'm just telling you, in these areas, when you start doing that, word would get around. We would have some of the homeless say, oh man, we already heard you and your partner were out stirring up crap, so everyone's staying quiet tonight. When you uptick the enforcement, crime goes down. We want to see schools become safe again. Let's make them physically safe, put some veterans out front. Let's make them safe ideologically, and let's get all the DEI and woke CRT and everything else out of there. All right, we're almost done here. National security and foreign policy. We need an America first national security and foreign policy. All this stuff is in Project 2025. What's so funny is that people are freaking out saying Trump's involved with Project 2025. One, he said no, he's not. But 2, even if he was, like, have we gone over anything alarming so far? Or is this stuff America first? Is this stuff like what we need? And let me even ask you, as a Christian, like, do you have any issues with what we've talked about so far? All of this stuff is honoring God, protecting our country, not wasting our money and spending it on evil purposes, protecting our children, strengthening our military so that our country can be safe. Like, have you seen anything that's caused a red flag inside of you? Have I said anything tonight that's bothered your spirit? Because I don't think that I have. Now, I get all of our policies are not perfect. I have issues with even our current abortion policy. It needs to be tighter. But these things happen slowly, they happen over time. Not everything happens overnight. Finally, religious and cultural policies. Trump is starting a lot of faith-based initiatives, and I'm so grateful. And he's surrounding himself with some great people, and I've had the opportunity to be in those circles. And I pray as the Lord leads and as the Lord opens doors that he'll use me in that way. And I'm the same guy no matter who I'm with. You guys saw the picture. I've been with President Trump. I've got to pray over him. I've been in circles. I'm the same guy there as I am right here. I'm the same guy to my family as I am when I'm preaching on a Sunday, when I'm preaching at a conference, when I'm playing pickleball. I'm the same guy. That is how we should be as Christians, people of integrity. We don't put on different faces for different crowds. So here's the conclusion. Is this something we should be worried about? No, I don't think so. To me, it sounds like we're winning. We're winning as a country. We are heading in the right direction. We're protecting the people of America. We're putting America first. We're protecting children. We're protecting women. I'm grateful, and I pray it continues. Let me pray, and that'll close it out for tonight. No live stream tomorrow, but Monday we'll be right back with another live stream of some sort at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Give a thumbs up. If you ever want to support the ministry, I never really ask, but go to promisekeepers.prg/give. It should be in the description. That's the men's ministry that I run. We're raising up godly men across America. We are raising up men who will step in, say something when they see something wrong. They see a man go and follow a little girl into a women's locker room. A promise keeper is going to be in that locker room ripping that guy out. Like, we are men who stand on biblical truth. We are men who don't cave for anything. We are men who stand on the integrity of God's word. We're not living by the flesh. We need more men like that. So help us reach more men. Tell the man in your life to join Promise Keepers. I'm so grateful for the work we're doing, and I pray that even through the work we do politically, we get a bigger platform to do the most important work. America First is great, but can I just tell you that if Christ is not the center of our efforts, then we're polishing the brass on a sinking ship, because this earth is going to fade away. All of these things are going to burn up. Only what's done for Christ will last. So we could have the best policies in the world. We could have the best military in the world. But it was David who said, some trust in chariots, some in horses. I won't trust in those. I won't trust in my sword or my spear or my bow. My trust is in the Lord. Can I tell you, we can have the absolute perfect Project 2025. We could have the perfect policies. If Christ is not in them and at the center of them, then we are just entertaining people on our way to the grave. And something happens when you die. And so hear me tonight. When you die, you are going to stand before a holy God. And I want to make sure that you know your status with him right now. Jesus did not pay the price for you to get to heaven someday. He paid the price for you to be forgiven of your sins, to be made brand new into a new creation, that your old life could be wiped out, that you could be made into a new person, get a heart of flesh in place of that heart of stone that you've had for so long, that you could begin to renew your mind with the truth of God's word, that you could be filled with the Holy Spirit so that you could live the life that he paid for you to live. And one day when you die, you will have eternal life and you will spend it forever with him in heaven and on a new earth. I'm speaking right now to even conservatives who lack Christ. A conservative without Christ, man, that's nothing. You just have good voting blocks. You just have good political values. But if you don't have Jesus, what is it all for? Conservatism, being a Democrat, liberalism, progressivism, none of it will save your life. Only Jesus Christ can do that. And the peace I have in my heart isn't because we have a good president. I had the same peace when Joe Biden was president. I had the same peace before that. Why? Because Christ has made me new. Christ has put his spirit in me. Christ has given me peace in joy and in times of trouble. Christ has given me peace when I've been hungry and when I've been full, when I've had more and when I've had less. It's been Jesus. So I pray you'd give your life to him tonight. Amen. All right, guys.